I think it's pretty clear that GTA 6 is the last big pop culture moment that we're ever going to have. It's kind of the culmination of the last decade of cultural hype and anticipation. It's the last thing anybody's even looking forward to. All the Marvel stuff is dead. They're still making Avengers movies, but nobody really cares. Star Wars. They keep making TV shows and they're announcing more movies, but it's diminishing returns at this point. Nobody's really like jonesing for more Star Wars. There is still, NBA 2K and Madden and stuff that comes out every year. But when's the last time anybody even really got excited for that? It makes a lot of money because, it's kind of obligatory. But it's not a moment in pop culture. The only people who talk about 2K are people who play 2K. But it's not a larger cultural conversation. GTA 6 is it. This is the last thing. And after that, it's kind of over. Which is why the wait for it to come out has been so agonizing. Because you can feel it's almost like you're on the roller coaster and you're getting pulled up that first hill. And you want that first moment of excitement to be everything you've looked forward to when you were waiting in line. But deep down, it's not going to happen. That is the real agony of the situation we're going through right now. Because, look, I think anybody who really is being honest with themselves knows that GTA 6 is going to be a lot like GTA 5, which was, to be honest, pretty similar to GTA 4. It's going to be pretty similar driving around. It's going to be pretty similar pulling out a gun and shooting somebody and playing little mini games. And it's going to be a slightly more polished version of that. It's going to look better, and there's going to be a bigger map, I'm sure. And, the NPCs are going to be a little bit more quirky and dynamic. But the game itself is going to feel very familiar. And that's what I think people are worried about, is familiarity. Because what they want is something new and exciting, and they want a new experience. But deep down, I think we all know we're not going to get it. The problem is not a lack of imagination or effort on the part of Rockstar or any of these other video game companies. The problem that we're running into is existential. The problem we're running into is about the nature of video games themselves. Because as far along as we've come in video games and as much improvement as we've seen in technology, playing a console video game is still basically 6 fingers. That's all you can do with a controller, basically, is 6 inputs at once. You have to fit an entire world into 6 inputs. And they can't be too complex or you're not going to have fun anymore. So you have to it's going to be more like 3 inputs. 3 things you can do at the same time that can make a game feel dynamic and alive and also fun. That is very, very difficult. And I think what we're seeing now is we've kind of reached a ceiling as to what you can actually accomplish with that limitation. This is really apparent if you play like the UFC video games, especially if you're a fan of the UFC, the actual product, because the UFC, it's the most dynamic sport in terms of things that can happen. Football is basically, the game itself is kind of played it's almost on a rail in terms of what all the different things that can happen after you snap a ball. You can run the ball, you can throw it to this guy, throw it to that guy. They run a slant route, and it feels like football. The reason the UFC video games are always kind of bullshit is that you can't capture the UFC in 6 fingers because too much stuff can happen. There's grappling, striking, level changes, feints, footwork, and all of those things have to happen at any moment. At any moment, you go from a striking match to a wrestling match to getting back up to moving around the ring, and that can't be captured very well in six fingers. So what you end up with instead is a game that has kind of sub games within it. Sometimes you're striking, sometimes you're grappling, sometimes you're moving back and forth and doing defense. But it lacks the fluidity of being able to do all of those things at once because that would be too complex. They could try to do it, but it would be too hard to learn how to play. No one would have fun because you wouldn't be able to capture the dynamics of being able to lift your elbow and block something while grabbing, while leaning back. It's like video games are never going to have that level of dynamism because we are limited to input. We're always going to be limited to input and the visual field of what has to happen on the screen. And that is why GTA is never really going to make improvements beyond where it already is. It's always going to feel like sometimes you're driving, sometimes you're running around and shooting people, sometimes you're playing a little mini game. You're playing shuffleboard or something, but you're never in between activities. That's why it's never really going to capture real life. Because in real life, sometimes you're walking down the street and then you break into a run and then you got to duck under something and pick up a rock and throw it, and then you turn and you talk to a guy and you eat a sandwich. All of those things are happening without you having to make a decision of now I'm doing this, now I'm doing this. Real life can be fluid like that because your inputs are basically unlimited. 2 hands, 2 feet, your legs can move, your head can turn, your neck can move around. Video games are never going to capture that dynamism. People think VR and like immersive gaming, but you run into the same problems. With VR, you basically have a TV strapped to your head. So you can look around and look at more stuff, but to actually interface with the world, you run into the same problems because also with VR, you can't move around without triggering kind of a motion sickness. So the best thing you can do is you're still using your thumbs to move around. You still can't pick up things and touch them and grab things because those still require inputs. So as long as we're still playing video games with 6 fingers, we're always going to be limited into how dynamic and open a world can be. I think the real promise of open world video games, basically any video game, is not so much a game as much as a lucid dream. A lucid dream is a dream where you're aware that you're dreaming. So you are in this dream world, but it feels like the real world, except you know it's not real, so you can do anything without long-term consequences. You can pick things up, move things around, run around, and interact with the world, and have your own little adventure. But you're not limited to button combinations, to loading and menus or whatever, because you're just experiencing the world itself. That would have to be some sort of, Neuralink technology that we're not even close to having. So it's not almost like you would rather not even imagine that's a possibility because it's going to be so far in the future that we shouldn't even expect it to happen. But at some point, GTA 6 is going to come out. And there's going to be a lot of hype that week leading up to it, and maybe the first week of gameplay. You're going to see all these Twitch streamer guys playing GTA, and everybody's going to be unlocking different, mini games and little details that nobody noticed. But I'd say within 2 to 3 weeks, you're going to notice a real depression sinking in among young men in basically everywhere around the world because everybody's looking forward to this. All these people are going to realize at the same time that there's nothing left. This was it. We already went through the hype cycle, and there's nothing left to look forward to. There's no more moment that's going to bring everybody together. Everybody's just going to be, fragmented in their own world. And best case scenario, another Smash Brothers.